safe space between us. I am your host Kieran and my co-host Tessa. This is your safe space. There is no judging here. We care. You're not alone. We will support you and help you. This is your channel too. Enjoy. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Kieran from A Safe Space Between Us, and I'm your host, Kieran. Today we've got a brilliant guest called Sharlene Lynch. Sharlene is the Vice President of Healing Through Love, a non-profit organisation that provides pamper days for women impacted by family and domestic violence. What I'll do, I'll pass you over to Sharlene. She can talk about more what she does, and then we'll start the podcast with her background story and how helpful she can do her mind shift talks from now. Sharlene, over to you. Welcome.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me as a guest here in a safe place between us. And that is so key, to have safety. It is such an underestimated, powerful place to be. And I love that you've called your podcast A Safe Place Between Us. So thank you for having me here as a guest.
Oh, thank you for joining.
Oh, you're welcome. So I'm just curious, what time of the day is it for you there?
Here it's 11 a.m. What about yourself?
7:30 p.m. And don't you love it that we can be on different parts of the planet and we can still be connecting, thank you, technology?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I've found it amazing that I've connected with so many different people like yourself across Australia, America, all different time zones, and we all got the same goal really, which has been amazing, to try and help others.
Yes, so true. And that's probably a really great place for me to start, is by sharing my mission with everyone that's listening today. So my mission is to raise the frequency of the planet. Now that is a very, very big mission. That's a big mission. And what I realized really early on the piece is this is not a mission that I can accomplish by myself. This is a mission that I can accomplish by linking arms with others, and that's exactly what I do. So I work with wellness practitioners to help them create their intellectual property. That's pretty pictures that explain the beautiful things that they do and the journey they take their clients on, and they're basically the key outcomes that they get for their clients. So they use these beautiful, pretty pictures as a pitch deck to run through and explain to people what they do. They also use them as a sales brochure, and they become the backbone for their online courses, their books, and their programs. So basically it's taking all of the juicy stuff that's inside someone's head, we call it an extraction, and then making sense of that language and creating the top level of their offering. So I'm helping other people help other people, and that's how we're going to accomplish this mission of raising the frequency of the planet, even if it's one heart at a time. And yeah, that's what we're here to do. So I understand that raising the frequency is in around our thought process and the language that we use. So I've not come from a place of really high vibe. I spent a lot of my life in a dark place, doing dark things and having a dark existence. So I know the difference between the light and the dark. I've lived them both. And I do know that it is our thought processes and also our language that we speak. So like basically, you change your language, you can change your life, and you change your thought processes, and everything is possible. So that's all been accomplished for me through going through a series of processes that happened from my life tragedy, which happened in September 2011. Which just, on any given day just seems like yesterday. And I have to say, we've just had Easter here. And I know, depending on if you're Greek or Russian, you've got it at different times of the year, but it all falls in April.
Yeah.
So I find Easter more challenging than any other time of the year. And yeah, it just brings it back like my September 11 was just yesterday. So if it's okay with your listeners, I really would like to go to those depths and just talk about what happened for me in September 2011 and what has transitioned for me since then, which some of your listeners might find relevance in.
Yeah, of course, Sharlene. It'd be amazing to hear your story of your dark place once and where you come out of the other side and now doing successful things to help others, which is amazing, very inspiring. So yeah, myself and all the listeners would find it very interesting to see where you started and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so I'll start my story in September 2011 when I came home early from a birthday party. Now, I was a little bit excited because I was relatively sober. And that was an unusual thing for me because I was not mostly sober. So I wanted to let my beautiful son know. Now, he's 17, he's a week off his 18th birthday. I wanted to let him know that I was home because I was sort of excited I was sober. So I screamed out to him in, beautiful mummy style,
Yeah.
babe, I'm home, mum's home. Because here in Australia, we can holler. And there was no answer. So I'm like, all right, I'll fix him. I'll knock on the door. So I knock on the door and he didn't answer. And I wiggled the door and tried to open the door. And the door was locked, which was really, really weird. Because in our house, for the most part, we just didn't lock our doors. It's just not what we did.
Yeah.
So I asked my then partner if he would go around the outside of the house and look in through the window and get Scott's attention. So I positioned myself in the laundry so I can see my partner. He's coming up, getting close to Scott's window. And then I saw his face. All of the colour drained out of my partner's face. So I knew there was something wrong, but I had no idea what it was. So I raced to my son's door and I kicked my son's door down. And that's when I discovered that my baby boy, my 17-year-old baby boy, had hung himself on the back of the door. And I tried for 15 long minutes to resuscitate him, all while praying that a miracle would happen and they would be able to bring him back. The ambulance officers came in with their hands fully laden with equipment and they ushered me outside of the room. Time stood still as I continued to pray that they would be able to do what I couldn't do, bring him back to life. The ambulance officer came out of Scott's room and I know that he said something, but I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the look on his face and that was it. I crashed to the ground, knowing that they had been unsuccessful. But I am still praying. I'm still praying that a miracle will occur. It took some time for me to even be able to stop rocking backwards and forwards as I continued to pray. And then I heard it in my stillness. I heard it. I heard one word. I heard the answer to my prayer. It was not the answer that I wanted. The word was forgive in a loud, booming voice. I thought everybody in the house could hear it, but it wasn't. It was a word for me.
Yeah.
To answer my prayer. It took me a long time to be able to get myself together enough to stand back up. And when I was able to stand, the ambulance officer asked, Sharlene, did you want to come in and say your goodbyes to Scott? So I did. I went into his room and I laid down on the ground. Now Scott's 6'2", almost 6'3". And so I laid my head on his chest and I said, Mummy loves you, baby. And I forgive you for your choice. What I did not understand until much, much later is that action of forgiving him began my healing process. I was healing at the speed of love, which was astronomical.
Yeah.
Later on that night, as I'm sitting and staring at my giant cup of coffee, which is now going cold, and I'm curled up, my legs are tucked in underneath me and I'm sort of semi-rocking in the chair. I'm looking at the coffee and I said this out loud. I thought I was really speaking to myself, but everybody in the room heard it. I said, I'm not just going to survive this. I'm going to thrive through this. That's what Scott would want. Now, interestingly enough, the police officers that were still in the room conducting their investigations thought that was strange enough for a mother to say that they wrote it in their report, which I then got questioned about later. That night, there was no sleep to be had. I was staring at the ceiling. And when morning came around, without still any sleep, I knew that I had to do some sort of action to move forward. So I reached for a spiral-bound book and I started to write out everything that I was grateful for. And I just feverishly wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And I filled pages of the things that I'm grateful for. And what I didn't again understand until much later is what I was doing is I was lifting my frequency, because gratitude is a frequency of 540, right up there with joy and love. So I was allowing myself to move forward, first of all, by being in a place of forgiveness. And forgiving my son, it took me a lot longer to forgive myself, but I was in a position to forgive him straight away. And then making that rock solid decision that my life was going to thrive. I had no idea what thriving looked like. My life was in the toilet, but I knew that it wasn't what I was living right then and there. I just knew it was something different. It was something more. And then continuing my journey by lifting up and being of gratitude for everything. Now, I still do gratitude on a daily basis. I just think one of the days between the night of Scott's death and his funeral, there was one day on my gratitude journal that there was only one thing written, and that was that the sun was shining. That day was really hard, but I still managed to find one thing to say about being grateful. And I still have a process every day. I don't even get out of bed without going through a gratitude process. So for your listeners today, if you're in a dark space, if you want to move, reach into gratitude. It will lift your frequency and allow you to move. Now, all of this was the beginning. There was so much more in between, but just to paint you a picture of the life that I was living at the time of my son's suicide. So I had been an alcoholic for 30 years, and not just a little alcoholic. We're talking 5 bottles a day.
Wow.
So fully functioning alcoholic. Yeah, I know. I still shake my head. I don't know how I did it, but I still managed to do it, 5 bottles a day, and I was still fully functioning. So on top of that, I had OCD to the point of self-harm. So, that is a challenging disorder.
Yeah,
and
cool.
Self-harm, it's real. I had ADHD to the point of distraction, incapable of thought processes that lasted anything more than a couple of minutes. And I was grossly overweight, 25 kilos. And I was a chronic hoarder. So not just a little tiny hoarder, I've got a few things. We're talking 33 cubic meters of stuff.
Wow.
So that's a lot.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty spectacular hoarder. So that's what I was living in. I was living in all of this mess, and I knew that I wanted to live a different life. I just didn't know how to get there. But what I did do is begin that process by forgiveness, making the decision, and then lifting my frequency with gratitude. And now today, I share with people the shift process, which is what got me from where I was to where I am now, which is a world-class international public speaker and also a business coach, a very successful business coach, and I love what I do on every level. I'd love to share with the audience the shift process, and for them, they'll find maybe some relevance that they can use in their lives.
Yeah, of course, definitely. Please crack on. So far, I'm just amazed, and I'm proud of you. But not that we know each other much, but I'm very proud and inspired that you can come out of that story of what happened to your son. I can't imagine how it feels. I've got 6 children, and I can't imagine losing. And one of my sons got ADHD, and he's been through a lot of mental health stuff. So I can't imagine losing your son. How you got yourself out there, it just shows that there is a way out. And obviously, you still have feelings. Of course, you're never going to forget your son, but leading on to the next topic of what you're doing now is just brilliant. So yeah, please crack on, Sharlene.
Yes, so congratulations on having so many children. Well done. There was no television where you
I've
were.
got no hair left nearly.
I love it. Okay, so how I got from where I was to where I am is I used the shift process. Now, I'm unpacking this retrospectively. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I was just doing. And it wasn't until some time afterwards that I unpacked what it is that I did to get myself there. Okay. So it starts with, it's 5 letters. So it's very simple. And we refer to it as the shift process. And this is what I know to be true is our mind is not set, but we still call it mindset. So what we need to do is change the language, change the life, and call it mind shift.
Mind shift.
If we can even just refer to it as mind shift, and then we're actually allowing ourselves to have that flexibility for the shift, because that's the first lesson I learned is when I was changing my language, things were beginning to change. When I was saying that I'm a recovering alcoholic, when I was saying I'm a recovering perfectionist, when I was using those sorts of languages, it was, even though I was transfixed still with my challenges, I was able to move forward. So the first letter S is to see the big picture. So if you can craft an image of how you would like your life to be, and it needs to be big. If it's like achievable, it's not big enough. So here's me. In my notebook, I wrote, my voice is quivering, my hand is quivering, and I wrote world class, and I'm crying while I'm writing it, transformational speaker.
Okay.
Boom. How dare I write that down? Look at me. I'm a hoarder, OCD, overweight, unhealthy. The list is huge. Where do I dare to dream that large? But I dared to dream. I dared to dream that I would live in a house that was like house and garden. I dared to dream that I'd be married to someone who just adores me just the way that I am. Like, I dared to dream how I would like my life to look, working 4 days, traveling over the world, being financially secure. I dared to dream this is what I'd like my life to look like. If you don't dare to dream, you don't get to achieve it. So it has to begin with that thought process of literally reaching for the stars, and then, you'll catch the moon on the way down. When I was going through points of recovery, because it was not the first time I've tried to fix myself up, that they would ask you to have a look at where you are now. And when you're not okay, when you're hoarding, when you're an alcoholic, when you're OCD, ADHD, when you've got all of these challenges, and you ask someone to please hold the mirror and have a look at yourself, we don't want to do it.
Exactly.
It's too painful because it's too much of a reality. But you ask us to dream, to imagine, to cast our minds forward about what is possible. Yeah, it takes some extra effort, but if we can get into a space where we can dream and see a big picture, whatever it takes, if you can handle your alcohol, unlike me, have a glass of wine and sit down and craft it out what it looks like. Or go sit under a tree, or your favorite place, or meditate on your cushions, wherever you can be, so that you can imagine what your life can look like. Yeah. Because this is what I do know as someone who's recovered from all of these challenges. If you can begin with that end in mind, it puts a place for the frequency to go. And then it allows you to move those steps forward. So the S is to see the big picture. And if it's too comfortable, if it comes too easy, it's not big enough, start again, build a bigger picture. Okay, that's H. Is the second letter. H is hone in on reality. So this is where I had to get really real. Okay, this is the life that I want to have. It's a huge ask considering what's happening for me. All right, let's break this down. We've got all of these challenges in all of these areas. Let's get realistic about what is really happening. Okay, you want to be a world-class speaker, but you can't even stand in your office for more than 5 minutes without having a panic attack. Okay, there's some work to be done there, yeah? You can't even get to your office. We'll put that in chapter 2. So, just crafting out all of the things that needed to happen, it took as many pages, if not more pages, than the seeing the big picture.
Perfect.
So there was lots of work to do. Now, there wasn't any way that I was going to be able to deal with it all myself. I needed to get assistance on different areas. So I went to AA. I went and saw therapists. So I didn't do it all myself. I read lots of great books, watched lots of great videos, but I got help. So hone in on reality is a time for you to really reflect on what's happening for you in your life and get real, but get real with some assistance from somebody, because otherwise you'll spiral down to a lower level. So now I just want to say at this point to any of the listeners, if you're on medication, good on you. It's all good. But I got from where I was to where I am medication free. Now that's a next level of, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Because that really set myself up for lots more challenges, because I wasn't prepared to go through the road of medication. Now the reason for that is I've got a highly addictive personality, and that's how I ended up being an alcoholic, amongst other things. So I knew that if I lent on medication to fix me, even just to sleep, that I would be going down another hole. Okay. And I just knew for me that didn't work. Now that's not for everybody, but I just knew for me it wouldn't work. And now today, still don't take sleeping tablets or do anything, not even headache tablets. I find alternative methods to get myself where I need to be. So H is hone in on reality, and this is where you need to get help. The next letter is I, so shift, S-H-I. I is possibly my favorite letter. Now, remember I was telling you I was sitting on the couch with my feet tucked in and I'm staring at my giant cup of coffee?
Yeah.
I didn't drink coffee from that day on. Now, here's what when you drink 5 bottles a day of wine, you need 8 cups of coffee to get you through the day.
Wow.
So I was an 8 cup of coffee girl. So I really loved my coffee. I took my coffee seriously. But that night when I was staring at my giant cup of coffee and I made that decision I wanted to have a different life, that was the very last time I drank coffee. And I still haven't drank it. And it's been 11 years. So what that did for me is let me see that I can implement quick wins. I can implement something that's sort of doable. And if I can sort of give up coffee, then maybe I can sort of give up alcohol. So what happens inside of the brain is it gives me a serotonin hit and makes me believe that other change is possible. So, you can use this today. When you listen to this podcast, see if you can implement a quick win. Is there something small that you can take away from this? Maybe change your language, change your life. Maybe mind shift rather than mindset. Like if there's something that you can take away from this that you can implement, what you're allowing yourself to do is have that serotonin hit and believe that other change is possible.
I love that one. I love that.
It is so good. And, you can implement a quick win for anything. And it can be that you might want to be able to get up earlier. So, just 15 minutes will do it. Yeah, you're still getting up earlier. Yeah. And then, you want to get up earlier than that, then just another 15. So you can implement quick wins. It doesn't have to be everything the whole time. It's a big shift for me from where I was to where I am. And it didn't happen all in one go. It was tiny little steps, one step at a time, 1 degree at a time, just compounded interest. And when you continue to take one tiny step and you compound it, you take that step, okay, I'm sure now, and you keep taking the next step, then you'll find that you won't take 1 step forward and 2 steps back. You'll continually take a step forward, and then it just expresses itself as the life that you want to live. So implement quick wins. It's one of my favourite letters.
That's brilliant. I even tell some of our listeners and the people I email about taking the small steps, but how you've just explained it is just outstanding and brilliant. I love it. Love it.
Oh, beautiful. It makes such a difference. And we can all do this, regardless of what it is that you want to change in your life, shift, move, whatever, is just do it. Eat the elephant. Oh, that's not a very good thing for a vegetarian to say, but, eat the elephant one mouthful at a time. And I think this is what happens is we set ourselves up for failure by thinking that we have to accomplish it all. And it's just not going to happen. Yeah. So 1 step at a time. So the next letter is F, and F stands for focus on the patterns. Focus on the patterns. So this is my greatest tool for focusing in on the patterns, and that is a journal. So in my hands, for those who can't see, they can just, are you listening, as I'm holding one of my journals. So I journal, I gratitude journal every day. I journal every day. I'll journal if I've got something in my heart that I need to figure out, or there's something in my head I can't sort through. I'll just get pen to paper and I'll start writing. Humans were designed this way. We were designed to work things out. When you start journaling, what will happen is you can go back and what I call re-journaling. And that is at the end of the week, you can just cast your eyes back on that week and you can get key learnings from that week. And then cast your mind back on the month, and then you've got a re-journaling of the 4 weeks or 5 weeks, and now you've got a re-journaling for a month, and that gives you a 1-paragraph synopsis. And then at the end of the 12 months, now you've got 12 paragraphs which you can then summarize into a very short space of time. This is how the shift process came out, from reading and rereading the journals. I could see the patterns of behavior. They just appear from the page because you're reading it over and over again, and you can see these patterns. You can see the patterns of language. You can see the patterns of thought. And then when you can see these patterns, it gives you a level of awareness, and now you become the observer. So that means it gives you space between thought and action, and then you can heal at the speed of love. It's amazing. So the other thing with the focus in on the patterns is they might not be your patterns. They might be your family patterns. And until you've got a level of distance between them, you won't see them. So an example, at 38, I had suicide ideation. And this sits really heavy in my heart because in some way my son knew about this and, did this give him the idea? So at 38, I had a real challenge and had a midlife crisis, and I went off and became a holistic psychologist. But the reason for that was that I was having suicide ideation. Now, interestingly enough, when you unpack the family patterns, my mother had a nervous breakdown at 38. And she left us at 38. So I was now 14 when she left. So mum left when she was 38 because she was having a life crisis. She was having a nervous breakdown. Dial it back to the generation before, and my grandmother committed suicide at 38. Mm-hmm. the same way my son did. So see that there's family patterns here. Now, if you've got children like yourself, you don't want your children to live these patterns. The way to do that is to break them yourself. So we're here to break the patterns of the generations before so that we can live life on new terms so our children do not have to face that. Now, some of your listeners might be believing in past lives. So they might not necessarily be this life pattern. They could be a previous life pattern. Yes, and to break any pattern, you need to bring awareness to it. And how do you bring awareness to it? You journal. Okay. It's free. Anyone can do it. You don't need a therapist. You just need a pen and paper. And for those of you who are under 25 and think that pen and paper is just not cool, you can do voice to text on your phone. Yep. You can do video vlogs. There is a myriad of apps out there, if you like funky apps, for doing any type of journaling. You need to get the stuff out. It needs to stop rattling around in your brain because you'll forget it. And then it will be built up on something else and you won't have that opportunity to learn from your experiences. We are supposed to get from the day, not through it. Okay. So to get from the day, you need to be journaling so that you can learn what you need to be learning so you don't have to relive it the next day.
Just a quick one on that, Sharlene. Do you still do your journal? Do you still do...
Right. Yeah, that's why it's sitting here, because I was journaling before.
Brilliant.
So I have several. I have smaller ones for when I travel because I spend a bit of time on planes. I also sometimes do it here if I'm like somewhere I cannot get to it. But normally it is with me.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah, one of them is with me. Yeah, I love it. And I find a solace in it. I'll even do a meditation and then grab my journal and write some things down.
So I found yesterday I had a really bad day and I first ever time I videoed myself and just let everything out. I will say that yesterday evening I felt a little bit better about myself and I watched it back this morning, took a bit of notes and stuff. So yeah, I can relate. I've only recently started that though, the last day or two. So that's a note to myself as well. So thank you for that.
It is so powerful, and it doesn't matter how you do it. The idea is to get it out, so that we can reflect. And for me, it's been more powerful than having a therapist. Yeah, just that the opportunity to see the patterns because they're everywhere. The patterns are everywhere.
Okay, brilliant.
We are a repeat of every pattern. So pretty much they say, show me the boy at 7 and I'll show you the man. So we are just basically repeating patterns from 7 years old. But now as an adult, we can't remember them. But if we journal, we can see the patterns. Okay. Yeah. So that's it. And then the last letter of the shift process, so the last magical step that's got me from where I was to where I am now is T, and T stands for take massive imperfect action. So I'm a recovering perfectionist. I wouldn't do anything until it was perfect, and it was never perfect, so I wouldn't do anything. So I would be like a deer in headlights. And so I just learned you needed to take massive imperfect action and just falling in love with, failing forward. Make a mistake. Yep, at least now you know what you need to correct, but doing nothing gets you nowhere. So it really, I have learned to fail gracefully and I've learned, and I really don't find any of them have been a failure. I've just found that there've been another way to learn. Yeah. So when we can change, when we can take the heat off of ourselves for needing to be that level of perfection, and just lean into just taking the action. Because if you think about it, when you're walking, if you want to go in a different direction, it's easy because then your foot just lands in a different spot. But if you're dead still and now you've got to move somewhere, it's like, well, which direction do I go? And that's what happens to us. We're sort of still. But if you can be moving, which is like failing, you can at least put your foot down the next time when you course correct in a different location. So those 5 letters of the shift process have got me from where I was to where I am now, and managed now to live in a house. So I'm speaking to you from my studio. So my studio is one of the rooms inside of my beautiful home, which is on the River Torrens, which is just the most beautiful place to live. And it literally is like house and garden. And I'm married, just married recently.
Congratulations.
Married now for 5 weeks.
Congratulations.
Thank you, 5 weeks. To the man of my dreams. And I had the most perfect fairy tale wedding. Everything. I work only 4 days a week. I have the perfect clients. I just love my clients. I love working with them. I get excited to see them. And I get to travel and to speak and, help people and make a genuine difference and raise the frequency of the planet. So, yeah, all of this is possible for everybody. You just need to embrace the shift process, but really start the process as thinking about who it is that you need to forgive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it you or somebody else? I know that it took me a long time to forgive me, but my son's forgiveness was instant. You need to understand the power of decision. So, as a recovered hoarder, when you think about it, those 33 cubic meters of stuff, they were all an indecision. I couldn't make a decision. Is this something I want to keep or something I want to get rid of? Has this got value? Yeah, lip pencil. Has this got value to it? Maybe, maybe I'll keep it. It could have. So they all came from inability to make decisions. But if you can make a decision is actually, the word decision means to cut off and kill. Think pesticide is kill. Suicide is kill. So die is to cut. So cut off and kill. When we cut off and kill all other options, when we make a decision, so marriage is a decision. Yep. When you make a decision, what you're doing is cutting off and killing all other options. So what happens is your own psychological immune system, your own brain supports you, keeps you healthy, keeps your immune system going, and supports you moving forward. Whilst you're sitting with one foot on one thing and one foot on another and not making a decision, your immune system, your psychological immune system will not kick in. This is where you get unwell. Yes. Yeah. So making a decision is very, very powerful. So the power of making a decision and the power of lifting your frequency with gratitude. So yeah, I hope that you found that all very beneficial.
I found that amazing. The shift pattern, amazing. Just a quick one. So I echo a lot of about self-care. So would you echo a lot of that as well? So obviously to forgive, you need to forgive yourself or whoever you're forgiving. And obviously to have your diaries, your plans. Did you do a lot of self-care? Listening to yourself, it was. But just to the listeners, would you say self-care is a major thing if it's getting better?
Absolutely. So I run a free Facebook group where I help people that are not in a financial position to work with me. And one of the days we do is self-compassion. So one day a week is all dedicated to self-compassion, and we dive into thinking about all the different ways you can do self-compassion, from having a cup of tea to hugging a tree to, going barefoot on the ground so that you can practice grounding, to, just the words that we say to ourselves. Yeah. You wouldn't even speak to your friends the way you speak to yourselves. So, using pattern interrupts to change the language around what we say to ourselves. This is one of our favorites, using mirror work. Yeah. So just using mirror work to sort of have a conversation with yourself. And we love mirror work on compassion days. So yeah, all sorts of things, like giving yourself that time, that break, that thought process. And for me, going to a 4-day week, that's self-compassion. That's lifestyle, but it's also self-compassion. It's understanding where your limits are and, drawing boundaries. So boundaries and saying no are an act of self-compassion. We need to take care of ourselves. Very much so, and it needs to start with our thought processes and our language, and then obviously we need to support that with the things that we do for ourselves as well. Having a bath.
Yeah, that's what I kind of say to our listeners is step by step. With your eye in shift, it's similar, but you say it really well and professional. Is just say today I'm going to do a 5-minute walk and maybe watch, if I'm feeling a bit down, watch something that's going to make me laugh. Tomorrow, I'm going to go and have a bath. I ain't had a bath for 2 days, for example. I'm going to have a bath. So I love the shift pattern, especially the eye. The last question I had for you, Sharlene, was obviously I'm in the UK, you're in Australia. What is it like in Australia with mental health awareness? Is it very out there? Are people open to discussions? Or is it like here in the UK, where I believe here in the UK, we're in 2023 and it's not normalised and it's not, everyone's scared to discuss the word mental health. Is it similar like that?
So actually, so living in Australia, we do really embrace it. So we embrace it on all of its different levels. So yes, and it wasn't always this way. So now I'm quite happy to say OCD, ADHD, self-harm, suicide ideation, that was me, this is me now. I wouldn't have said that 10 years ago though.
Is that because of how Australia's progressed as a country, or is it, and plus your self-care, is it a bit of both, bit of everything?
So I can only speak from my
Yeah.
perspective as a person who was still coming out of the darkness 10 years ago, is that we see everything through our own veil. So now out the other side and managing my challenges differently is that when I say things, and also because I'm a body language
Yeah.
expert as well, I can look at their body language and I can see how they're responding to it. So these things that I was experiencing back then could be also my perception.
Okay.
Right, so I'm seeing it through my veil of darkness, and if someone's responding, I might have got their body language wrong.
Okay.
You see, I might have got their intentions wrong because I'm coming from a low base.
You can tell me
Yeah.
about my body language after.
So it's absolutely fascinating. But we are very proactive here in Australia. We have mental health. I think May is Mental Health Month. And we have Domestic Violence Month as well in May, or Domestic Violence Week. So we have lots of support in and around that. We also have programs inside of companies. So if you've got particular challenges, the bosses are educated to be able to have these conversations with you and point you in the right directions of EPA, which is an employee protections support basically group, and that's all free. Well, not free for the company, they're going to pay, but they send you away to get assistance. We also in Australia have if you're on a lower income, you can actually get, I think, 10 or 12 visits to see a therapist.
That's amazing.
All paid for by the government. So we've got lots of, and all of the GPs are qualified to run K2 tests, which is basically a series of questions to see where you lie. Are you in danger? Do you need to see somebody? And how soon do we need to get you to a therapist? So we've got lots of support structures. Now, that's me on this side, getting up through the other side. But if you ask someone else, they might give you a different perspective on it. So it really depends. But for me, I can see that we're very supportive now, from my fresh outlook, and that we've got lots of things in place to help support people moving forward.
No, that's good to hear.
It's not that way for every country.
No, it's not. I've spoke to quite a few different people all over the world, and sometimes I hear some sad stories. But even here in the UK, I've only recently, I'll say half a year ago, become okay. I'd self-care, be open about my story about being sexually abused at 14 and my drug and alcohol addiction, etc. And I've become open about it, but I'm finding a lot of people still very judgmental, and I know you're going to get that all the time, but also like the mental health word is like a massive disease. When in fact, for me, my opinion on it is someone I know or myself or someone in my family will go through mental health, something to do with mental health at one stage or another in their life, anxiety, depression, whatever it is. And I just really want to do our best and I know you're doing amazing, and other podcasters and listeners and speakers and doctors out there. I know there are people out there across the world who are actually trying to normalise these conversations, and I just want all the listeners on everywhere, not just on my page, everywhere, to realise there are people like Sharlene out there, myself and other people, but Charlene's more of a much of a professional expert than me, is that we are trying our best to support and help and normalise these conversations. What I'll do, Sharlene, as well though, is put your links at the end of this video, because I think you've been very inspiring to me. I have to be honest, very inspiring. There's a lot I'm going to take from this. So and also I want to say again, you should be very proud of yourself. I'm very proud of you and inspired of the person, what you went through and what you've become. And I know it's, as you said, it's all easy saying it, but there's steps you need to take to realise the writing down, the iron shift, the whole shift pattern. Amazing. Just the last thing, is there anything you would like to say to the listeners? Anything you like, really?
Oh, well, lots of things. But I do want to say I did visit, bless you, by the way. Thank you. I did visit England, and you know what? For the whole time that I was there, the sun didn't shine. And I thought, okay, is this unusual? But then I asked a few people, and they said, no,
this is UK.
Sort of a bit normal. I'm like, because, we have so much more sun. So I do want to recognize, though, that depending on where you live in the world, if you're not getting as much sun as you could do, there are other things that you can do to fix that. So that's just brain chemistry. And so there's things that you can do to affect that brain chemistry just by sitting under different lights are going to help you with that. Yeah. Or going outside, even if it's not sunny. So we just need to find ways. I know that in some of the colder climates, we just need to find ways to get outside and get as much sun as we possibly can, because we do need that. Yeah. And I do know that when I was very sad, I didn't want to go outside because it was just easier to be inside. That was all part of the mental health issue. I didn't even want to get out of bed, let's face it. So sometimes we do have to do those things that are a little uncomfortable in that current state, yes, and they're the things that are going to make us better. So we just need to shift the way we feel about those things and see that there is a reason to be doing this, yeah? So yes, and thank you for your beautiful, kind words. I love it. And yes, I'd love to share any of my links for your people to connect with. It's always a blessing to have more friends on the planet. In closing, regardless of where you are in your journey while you're listening to this, just know that everything is possible. Everything is possible. And all you need to do is make a decision to live a different life and, get the care and support from people that you need to help you move forward. Now, I've just got to say that my friends and family were not necessarily all the most supportive humans in my process. So for me to come out as an alcoholic, I had to say, I come from a family of alcoholics. Well, of course, they're not going to be so supportive about you saying that. When I stood up to say that I'm a hoarder, not everyone in my family was going to support that because I come from a family of hoarders. So just know that you just need to, tell everyone what you're doing and communicate that, and, but just be aware that not everyone's going to support you. So what you need to do is make sure that you're in a supportive community, whatever that looks like, a sporting group, a church group, a podcast group, a Facebook group, but you just need to make sure that you're in a supporting community of people that are like-minded and then want you to succeed. Yeah. Because not everybody, friends or family, they don't necessarily all have your back.
I know that.
I know that. Your elevation to the next level, your moving forward is going to shine a light on them not. And if they're human and that they're not necessarily going to be as supportive as they could be. Yeah. It's tribe mentality. It's what it is. But if you can just make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that want to help you move forward, that's a beautiful thing. This has been a privilege and a pleasure to spend quality time with you, and I've really enjoyed this. I'd love you to come on my podcast.
No, definitely. I'll definitely come on, have a chat. Happy telling my story. I'm open about talking about it and stuff. But Sharlene, for me, and I know it's going to hit a lot of listeners, I want to say thank you so much. It's been very inspiring. There's a lot sinking in my head what you said, especially the shift pattern and the diary thing. I've only just started, but listening to how you explained it, see, for me, I need to hear it explained in the correct terms, and how you've done it. It's triggered something in my head, and I guarantee I'll probably start it. I've got diaries sitting next to me, but they're all blank. But seriously, Sharlene, I'm gonna, all the listeners out there, please comment and when this goes out and let us know what you think. And also, all the links to Sharlene will be out there if you need to contact her or anything. Please feel free. But as always, this is your safe space as well. And if you need any support info, please give us a message or Sharlene a message on the link. Right, from me, bye, Sharlene. Take care.
Bye for now.